Hi, folks. Welcome back. Elaine Marolakos Edelson with Astrology Mojo. And I hope you're having a glorious day. I went hiking this morning with my dog, as I usually do. Sometimes I go to a park and sometimes I go to the trail. And because it's been raining off and on the past couple of days, we went to the trail, and this is what it looks like. I want to show you. It's so pretty. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? This is climbing up on some of the rocks by Bell Rock, looking out onto the vista of Courthouse and to the right and some other places. Anyway, this is how I start my day, even when I'm feeling crappy. Because it always helps me. So I think it's really important that in these times of dissension and conflict, that you find a way to do something that helps you to get out of an old pattern that might keep repeating itself. And, you know, this is why I like to look at astrology and what it does for people. So how does astrology show up in your life? And remember, folks, the planets don't do anything to you. When the planets make a move, you feel it. When you make a move, the planets reflect that in the heavens. So there is a cooperation happening. And when I look at aspects in astrology, I will see the collective. I will see what's going on for you, not so much as an individual, unless I'm giving you a personal reading or I meet you or you're my family or friends, but I will get an idea of what's on people's minds and what they're outputting. Now, all we have to do is turn on, MSNBC or CNN or whatever, Fox, anything you're watching. Hi, Stephanie. Good morning. And you can see what's going on the world stage. Now, if you are in America, it's just in your face, as most Americans are. But if you're in Europe, there's a whole different conversation happening. But it's interesting how astrology shows up at the same time all over the globe. How does that happen? Well, we all live in the same planet. So we're all going to feel the same energy. I have a friend who, when something is happening in his life, will be talking about things and I'll say, and he's a skeptic, which is fine for me. He loves my advice, but he discounts the fact that it comes from astrology or intuition. So my friend will say, "Oh, darn, you did it again. You called it. You said what was going on. How do you do that?" And he goes, "I keep trying to disprove your theories." You don't have to be an ardent believer in astrology to have it. Hi, Brittany. To have it actually be something in your life. It already is something in your life, just like air. We don't think about the molecular structure of air. Well, I don't anyway, but I'm breathing it, so it affects me. And if I don't have any, it's going to affect me. So that's how I look at astrology. It affects you across the board, no matter what's going on. So where does it show up right now? Well, let me tell you, this month, it's so interesting. So I want you to just bring it down to your level and look at, instead of the world stage with all the caca that's going on out there, I want you to look at the reflection of these energies in your life and how do they relate to you. Okay, I'm just going to bring up topics, and it's kind of like a game show. Okay, we got our first runner-up. We're going to bring up the topics, and if you can guess what this means in your life, you win the prize. Hey, Jen. Okay, so Chiron is part of astrology. Now, there are asteroids in astrological definitions. There are so many. I don't look at all of them, but I look at a couple of them. One is called Vesta, which we'll talk about next week. And then there's Chiron, which it's getting the big attention now in astrology. Things always circle back, like shoes go in and out of style. So do planetary aspects. Just like Pluto is being brought back to the table for becoming a planet once again because it was demoted to a dwarf star by scientists. But now they're reconsidering what the criteria is for a planet to be a planet. So, we always have to, morning, Sasha, we always have to regenerate, recycle. And that's the whole purpose of retrogrades. This is what we look at in any planetary retrograde. When the planet goes into a different spin, we'll just call it that. It's from our perception, though. It looks like it's moving backwards. But from stationary Earth, we look at a planet out there. Imagine two planes moving in the sky at the same, they were going at the same speed. But one planet is much further away than the one closer to Earth. So the one that's further away is going to look like it's moving backwards or going slower, when actually it's not. It's an illusion. And so that's what we deal with in retrogrades. It's a global experience. We all encounter them when we revisit the things in our closet and say, oh, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm going to donate it or give it away. That's a retrograde energy. So this time frame now with Venus retrograde and Neptune retrograde, some of the other planets have already gone direct. Uranus is still retrograde. And so this brings up a whole lot of stuff dealing with, okay, these are the topics I want you to assemble for your own life. All right. There's Venus dealing with women or your own feminine energy. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Let's look at what life is reflecting back to you regarding women, friends in your life, family members. It can, and because it's retrograde, it can be someone who's not feeling well. Maybe you have a child who's going through some stress, or maybe you have a grandparent who is, reaching an end stage in her life cycle. So you want to look at, or a friendship, it's waning and you're wondering, why am I really in this relationship anymore? So let's just, all right, that's one person, right? That's a one definition so far. I have something in my eye, sorry. In astrology. Okay, the next definition, coming back to the asteroids, is Chiron. Now, Chiron, as it's been depicted over the years, is supposedly represents your wounds. What I like to look at in my research and what I've brought to the table regarding the definition of Chiron is I want you to look at your masculine parent, because your masculine parent and you share a similar wound. What is that wound? Are you feeling abandoned? Are you feeling that you can't get ahead in business or with finances? Are you feeling inept in your personal, sexual, or romantic relationships? So look at what, assess for yourself your masculine parent. And I would typically say, in astrology, the 10th house in astrology deals with the father. But, as roles and gender definitions are changing these days, it's not always the father. Sometimes it's a one-parent household and the mother becomes the masculine parent. So, or in a two-parent household, it can be interchangeable because maybe the mom works and the dad stays at home and takes care of the kids because roles are changing. And gender identity is changing. So you want to just keep that in mind. Your masculine parent had a wound, and that wound and you have something in common. So assess for yourself what that might be. Okay, so we've got Venus, that's a feminine energy and or a woman in retrograde coming back into your life, whether it's on the periphery and you read an author that you used to love and transported you, and now the book tumbles off the shelf in your bedroom and you say, oh my gosh, I haven't read this author in so long, I'm going to get back into it. And or it can be an actual friend or a person. So we've got Venus, the feminine energy, or a woman. We've got the retrograde, meaning coming back to and reviewing in order to either renew or release or renegotiate the relationship. And then we've got Chiron and the masculine parent with the wounds. Now, on top of that, we have Mercury, this aspect this month, and it's not just this month, it's like, this is a definition that'll last you the rest of your life because these aspects come and go all the time. And it's what they are reflecting back to you. So what is happening in your life regarding women, regarding your masculine parent, regarding your current situation with, fill in what is the blank for that wound. And then with Mercury represents, hi Rochelle, hey, you're a Capricorn. Cool, I'm a Capricorn rising. Let's have tea. So what Mercury represents is communication and perceptions and judgment, and also siblings. That's a extended definition. But if we look back through ancient texts and older descriptions of Mercury, named after the god Mercury and the fleet-foot messenger. So there's all kinds of communication, and it's not so much what you're talking about, but it's first and foremost what you're thinking, how you're forming synapses with those neurons of yours. And then it has a lot to do with how are you communicating? What are your perceptions? What are your judgments? Now, there are evaluations where you look and say, oh, okay, I have this pen and I have this pen. This one has a finer tip, and I like that for certain things. This one has a thicker thing and it's a different color. So that's an evaluation. How do I choose to move forward with this information, this energy? A judgment is making a kind of a ruling, no pun intended, regarding what we're doing in life today in America. But we're looking at making a particular assessment of someone based on insecurity. So if you have an insecurity and a neighbor comes by and says, hey, you didn't weed your lawn and now it's spread over to mine. And so that person is definitely judging you. And then you feel, what do you feel? Maybe defensive. Maybe you say, hey, I don't like the way he spoke to me. So then there's hard feelings that go with judgments. So Rochelle says, I just stopped on time to say hello, got to get back to work. We'll watch the replay. Yes, much love to you too. And have a beautiful day at work. So when Mercury is in play, which it is all the time because we're always thinking and creating perceptions and judgments and evaluating things in our life, we want to assess for ourselves, does this woman or feminine energy in me, or that I need to embody or allow to, creating these perceptions, Mercury, your perceptions and your communication with a woman and or with a female energy or experience, or the wound that you and your father or your masculine parent share. Okay, you see how we're going to layer each things that we talk about in astrology and how it applies to your life. So if I were to say, I'll have a client right now who, and we haven't even finished. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish before I tell a story. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to look at is Mars. Okay, now Mars represents more masculine energy. It's proactive, it's energetic, it's athletic, it's sexual, it's also angry or aggressive. It can be assertive in the positive way, in the negative way. It's got a bone to pick, and it's got angst, and it's got fuel, and it wants to explode and ignite topics and scenarios and create inflammatory things. Okay, so let's recap. We have Venus, right? Feminine energy, with a retrograde returning your feminine side, allowing something to happen or disallowing, creating boundaries or issues about femininity, issues about women, or an actual woman. Then we have Mercury, your perceptions and judgments and your communication. And then we have Chiron, the masculine parent's wound that you share. So as you start to assess all these things, then we add the next layer of Mars, and Mars being more aggressive or assertive or combative, or taking a stand in a very positive way and speaking out for the greater good, because it's in the sign of Aquarius right now. So wow. So what else can we assess? How do these definitions start to play out in your life? Do you have angst or anger with a neighbor who's a woman? Or do you have someone in your life, a friend that you're having an argument with, or it's coming back because you haven't really resolved it? Is there an issue in your body based on the wound that you share with your masculine parent? And maybe it's causing some physical ailments, or you're just angry and frustrated and you don't know why, because of this wound or because of this relationship to a particular woman, or because of this relationship to your own feminine side, where let's say you were wronged in the past on some level. That's according to your perception and your experience. And not wanting to create judgments, but then needing to speak out. You finally do. And when you do, it creates a big brouhaha and a ruckus. I know that looks like what we're reading about in the paper. So these are themes that how these planets can show up in your life in other areas in more positive ways. Wait, before I even go there, I'm just going to take a sip. So think about how these things are applied in your life, and please let me know in the comment section what's showing up in your life with women right now, or with feminine energy, or what's showing up with feeling out of sorts, not knowing what to believe, or needing to act on something, using more assertive energy. Maybe it's about your health. Are you getting back into shape? Are you maybe you just hired a trainer and it's a woman and it used to be an old friend of yours, so there's so many variations of how these definitions can play out in your life. But let me know in the comment section what's happening for you. And while I take my sip. It's such a beautiful day here in Sedona. We've had a little bit of rain on and off, and I'm going to show you again if you just joined us. This was the picture I took this morning when I was walking on the trail, which is just 5 minutes away from where we live. And this is where I dump my crap. Thank you, Earth. Thank you, Sedona. And when I walk with the dog, I do my EFT tapping, and I'm so frustrated. I'm so angry. I'm so whatever. And it all comes out, and I let nature take it from me. That's where I dump my stuff. So I don't put it back into the world, and the earth absorbs it. And that's why I love the earth so much. So Stephanie says, a girlfriend who I believe is overstepping a boundary. Okay. So that's a prime example of what we're talking about. So then comes Mercury and says, well, how do I perceive this? What do I want to do about this? How do I want to communicate this? First of all, communication takes place in the head and in the mind and in the body first. So you have, what are your perceptions? Is the person overstepping a boundary if it's related to this woman? Is someone else doing something in your life that you're just not jiving with? Or is it you? Did you overstep a boundary? Did you say or do something or not say something? Sometimes when a planet goes retrograde, a person, depending on who they are and what their chart looks like, a person's energy goes backwards and they clam up and they don't communicate and they disappear. And you wonder, did I say something? I haven't heard from this person. I put out feelers, I look, I can't find. Or you might think maybe something happened to them and you can't get in touch with them. And you text them and you email them and you call them and you say, what? Dude or friend, what happened? I haven't heard from you. And they're like, oh no, my phone broke. And it's like, oh, so our perceptions would take us to, trauma places, right? Like I say, locusts. We don't always know what's going to happen, but as you train your intuition and then add the level of understanding through astrology is one of the ways. That's why I'm here to talk about that. And also metaphysics and spirituality and looking at these definitions. So then we have, I want to add the moon to this particular combination of bedfellows. That we have Venus in retrograde, we have Mercury, and then we have Mars. So Venus, a woman allowing or disappearing, resurfacing in your life. And then we have Mercury, which is perceptions, and then judgments or evaluations. And then we have Mars, which is more masculine. It can be sexual, it can be sports related, it can be athletic or healing. It can be more proactive, which is more positive, the positive version. And now let's add the moon. So when we combine the moon, it's definitely dealing with motherhood, feminine energy, feelings and emotions that either have had it and you're done and you just want to, I just have to say this, or the eruption of an issue for a family member or a friend who is undergoing a health issue. So these things can show up in your life in so many different ways. Now, let's say you're the ideal human. Welcome, citizen, to the planet. You are the ideal person. You deal with your stuff. You feel your feelings. You express yourself with compassion. You articulate so beautifully. You're like literature. And we can't wait to hear what you have to say next because you're so healing. And thank you. And you're so creative and wonderful, and you're healthy, and you're a trendsetter, and you're the leader, and you know when to follow, and you're just the ideal person. Even if you were that, you would look out in the world and see all this stuff that's happening with all the definitions that we're talking about, and you might lose your cool. You might get to that place of saturation. Like, I have had it. I am so done. That's when movies come into play. That's when movies, I don't know where that came from, because that's not what I was intending to talk about, but, let's go with it. Movies are a microcosm of your entire world. And so when you look at different movies, and I'm not talking horror movies. We don't want to go to too much horror. Okay, Stranger Things is good. That's palatable. But anything else can disrupt the peace in your aura. And really, I know some people are supercharged by, I love horror movies, and like what's coming around the corner. And, The Quiet Place. Wow. Academy Award performances. And our daughter said, and Aaliyah does not do horror. But we got the reviews a little bit ahead of time. We don't like to know about movies, but we need to know, is there horror? Because I don't do slasher movies or anything like that. And Aaliyah said, no, you're going to love it. You're going to love this movie. Now, we love Emily Blunt and her husband. And, when we watched it, Aaliyah did warn me about one scene on the steps. That's all, because she knew me and what I didn't need to see. So once warned, great, fine. We watched that movie. It was so riveting. Good storytelling for us is always. Dean and I just started watching a documentary on Quincy Jones in Netflix. It's fascinating. So this is where we put our Mars and Aquarius energy. This is where sometimes we'll watch the drama or the melodrama instead of engaging the melodrama. So movies are a great way to move your stuff so that you can work it out. And it's been documented scientifically that a person watching any particular type of genre, because the brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined, right? This is true. This is neuroscience. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. So when you're watching something that relates to your life, or you can relate to the subject matter, you start to feel things. You change chemically in your body. You can actually have great healing experiences with beautiful films. Now, by beautiful films, I will recommend, excuse me, About Time with Bill Nighy and Rachel McAdams. That's just a wonderful film, just to see who you are and what you think you need to change and want to change, and if you could go back in time and change things, and then what it culminates into. Because, again, we're talking about Mercury perception, Venus, woman, energy coming back, or allowing or disallowing, and Mars standing up for what you believe, and also aggression and masculine energy. I look at the Me Too movement. This is all definition abounds with these aspects. And then the moon. So Sasha says, just started talking to my mother again recently, and we do not have the best relationship. We clash on the constant, but lately it's been pretty okay. Okay, so then it goes back and forth a little bit. And maybe it's that my mother also gives my dad the same grief. Okay, so when you look at these situations and you say, I can only deal so much with this person, and then comes the eruption that you've been holding, because that's the bigger issue. It's like, what are you holding emotionally? When I see the moon and Mars and Venus retrograde and Mercury all converging in a little block party, in a little cocktail party, they're all hanging out, and I'm looking at all these characters. That's how I like to look at astrology. And I look at all these characters and I see people who are gritting their teeth, who are biting their tongues, who are saying what they don't mean, who are doing the opposite of what they intend, and or who are negatively pursuing something, aggressively, and pushing beyond the boundaries of someone, crossing a boundary. And I look at this and I say, something's got to give and someone's going to blow. Huge. So yeah, in the news, we see that. We see what's going on the world stage, right? And then we look at our own lives. And this is what we really want to be doing. You want to be and I said this in the last live event, you want to own your stuff. Just own it. So if you're not conversing well with mother, and you've got an issue there, so you want to look at and write down and journal for yourself. Remember, Mercury is communication. Journaling, this is a wonderful time to journal. And throughout your life, remember, these aspects and angles repeat themselves because you repeat your patterns. That's the whole picture. You understand the reflection? That the planets will reflect who you are at any given moment because you recycle. How many times do you say, oh, I'm going to learn how to ride a horse or play the piano, or I'm going to learn how to sing, or I'm going to learn how to do this thing. And you might start, you might think about it, you might save some money, you might, put it aside, and you come back to it. And 5 years later, you say, you know what? I really do want to learn how to do. My husband bought me a piano many years ago because I've always wanted one. That was my mother's, one of her greatest regrets, because we couldn't afford a piano. And she felt so bad. She felt so guilty about it. And we had no room. We lived in a railroad flat apartment, 4 rooms. And, we had no room. We had no money. And so throughout her life, she would come back to that. And I'd go, Mom, it's okay. And then the day that Dean bought me a piano, her first response, because she'd been holding this all her life, her first response was, oh, Elaine, I'm so happy for you. No, that was not her first response. It was, we always wanted to get you one. And I'm like, Mom, it's not about you anymore. It's okay. It's okay. Forgiven. Done. But you see, she was holding that energy. So now I took lessons and I played for a while and I sang for a while and then I stopped. And then I did other things. And Dean walks in my office last month and he says, should we get rid of the piano? I go, no, I'm coming back to it. I know I'm coming back to it. I just haven't touched it in a year. I dust it. But I'm coming back to it. I know I am, because we do these things. We recycle and we revisit and we renew our relationship and our vows to our ultimate intention, our path in life, what we want to be doing. Hi, Rachel, write on your stuff. Love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And if this is helping you, if you have other topics you'd like me to talk about, please let me know in the comment section. So when I look at what's happening on the world stage with the planets, it's not, people will come to me and say in a reading, okay, I just want to know my purpose. I want to know my purpose. I'm 46 years old. I've heard this from so many women. I'm 46 years old. I'm 52. I'm 65. I'm whatever. I want to know what my purpose is in life. I've lived so far. I've raised kids. I've had a business. I've done this. I've worked. I've traveled. What am I supposed to be doing? And I understand that because a long time ago I used to feel like that, right? But anymore, the answer to that question is, if you're asking this question, the number one purpose you have on this earth is to become as present as possible in as many moments as possible. That is your number one purpose. All right? Because without that, you're living in the past, you're living in the future, nothing gets done in the now except you revisit the same old, same old. You will rinse, lather, repeat. You will do the same. We are creatures of habit. Our neurons know one way unless you tell them differently, and then make that shift, that change, and then move forward from there. So, what's your purpose? I'm listening. What did you say? Oh, to be as present as possible in as many moments as possible, Elaine? Yes, that's your number one purpose. And then it's a matter of, what is your greatest joy? I asked a client this recently. I said, what is your greatest joy? And she said, joy. I don't know that I know what that is. Okay. So glad you called me because we're going to find it and we're going to get there. And so she's working on that right now. And, you create a pattern of living, or you create a way of being, right, that conforms to the norm. You fit yourself in a box, and then halfway through, you turn around and go, what just happened? Is this my life? This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I had hoped for. This isn't what I thought. Okay. So we come back to your perceptions, and we come back to all the retrograde planets. We'll keep revisiting over and over and over again until you start to wake up a little bit more. I had a client recently who is on a celebrity status, and I was startled that he wanted a session because I thought, oh, he's got it all together. Like, he's out there and he's fighting for the cause and he's doing his stuff, and he's got shows around the country and blah blah and whatever. And I said, okay, sweetie, what is the one thing you want that you think you don't have? And he said, it didn't even miss a beat. He went, I want to wake up. And I just burst out laughing. And I said, I love that you want to wake up. Because waking up in the moment says you are now responsible, and then you own it. You own it. So no matter what, your feelings are going to come and go always. It overlaps. Are you happy? Someone kept asking me because they were very determined to get the word happy out of me. Are you happy? You happy? Are you happy? You happy? Throughout my lifetime with this person. You happy? You happy? And I finally said, in this moment, yeah, I'm really happy. Tomorrow I may be sad for 12 minutes, but the underlying theme is not happy or sad. For me, it's gratitude. I am so grateful. So feelings will come and go. I'll have moments where I feel sad, and I may not know why. And then being me, I go looking. I go looking. Why? And I start doing EFT tapping, or I look at my chart, or I'll just tune in and meditate. I talk to my angels and then say, okay, what's the deal? Show me something. Show me in a clear, calm, healthy way. These are the parameters I ask when I work with angels. Clear, calm, healthy. Because if you just say, show me, ta-da, you might jazz hands. You might get shown and get knocked on your ass. So clear, calm, healthy way. Show me. And then I'll have a thought, a feeling. I'll remember something. I'll have a dream about someone I haven't seen for years. And I'll say, oh, is it about this person, or is it about the way I feel when I used to be with this person? And it always comes down to me really honing it. I had a client honing it to the nth degree, like really understanding behavior and what's repetitive. And that's important to you. If it's important that you understand your life and create an intentional life, then it's important to understand the why behind the perception that you have about your life, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and why. Why? Some people have friends in their lives and they just go out and they do their thing, and they live day to day, and they just get through and there's no judgment on this. There's no judgment on this at all. But they'll get through the paperwork or the thing, or they leave it to the side, and they watch their favorite shows, and they wake up and they do it all again. And then 10 years later, and then they're so unhappy and they don't know why. And that's the moment that you start to wake up. When you start to question, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And why am I doing it with those people? Then that's when your conscious awareness is blossoming. And that's a beautiful thing. It really is, because that puts you on a path of connection to something greater than yourself. And that connection leads to spiritual awareness and intuitive growth. And that's what I'm all about. You want to expand what's going on in your world? Then just take a moment. It doesn't really, truly, right now, it doesn't matter where you live, how much money is in your bank account, what you think about your body or the shape of your hair, it's like, it doesn't matter. What matters is who you are in the inside first. So if you really want to know what's going on, ask yourself daily, and you might have to do it incrementally throughout the day if you're going through something a little bit more challenging. But that is, ask yourself, am I being the most present me I can be in this moment? And if I'm not, let me just take a breath, because the very next moment is your opportunity to transform. And you take that moment into the next moment, into the next moment, into the next moment, and the next thing you know, you look back and you say, wow, I can't believe I used to be that, or I used to do that. And now I'm this. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. I'm so much more happy. That's the deal, right? Isn't it? Hi, Becca. Oh, no need for apology. You're working it. Good for you. That's awesome. Be as present as you can, folks, because these, astrology, people will look to me for predictive tools, as an intuitive and a clairvoyant and an empath. I will feel it. I will see it. I could smell it, a mile away. When someone says one thing and yet they're doing the other, they are in a place of contradiction. So if you're in a place of contradiction where you say, but I'm so fill in the blank, I'm so positive. I work really hard. I give at the holidays. I'm really kind to people. Why is this happening to me? How come I can't make more money? How come I can't get that relationship that I want? How come I can't be, how come it can't all be perfect? Well, that's a whole topic in and of itself, right? Perfection. But we're going to come back to what we started talking about. What is the wound that you share with your masculine parent? How are you allowing that wound to dictate your relationship to self, to others, especially women, and then to men? And then how are you assertive, or how are you passive aggressive to get your needs met? And if you're passive aggressive and going around the side of the building and using the back door, we want to go through the front. Shut the front door. Somebody said that to me a couple of years ago. I cracked up. You want to be allowing. Look at the card I just pulled. No coincidence. Actually, it is a coincidence. A coincident is when you have a need and the universe provides. Okay? So I'm going to be back on Monday. I'm coming back, and we're going to talk more about the wound and how we can look at astrology and the different aspects and planets and what's going direct, because Uranus is retrograde right now. But then we're going to be moving forward and looking at what's coming up. Oh, what happened, Jen? You just described my last year. The transformation. Yes. So you're transforming. Awesome. That is beautiful. And so, when does it start? November. It starts in November, but we're coming up on a Mercury in retrograde. And that's another big time where people look inward more for creating their world outwardly. And in doing that, you can see something you might have missed last time. So what I want to leave you with is, between this live event and the next one, what I'd like you to do is become as present as possible in as many moments as possible to get your mojo back. And just be aware. You don't have to do a whole lot with it. Just be aware of, oh, wow, I'm in the moment. Now, you can freak yourself out by being a little bit too present all the time. That's just too much because you have other things to do. But if you're present with what you're doing, great. You're driving. You don't want to be thinking about last week's dinner somewhere, and then you forget the exit that you need. And, you want to be present where you are. Be as present as possible. And while you're being as present as possible, tune into what is the most predominant feeling in your body. Is it gratitude, appreciation, anger, frustration, sadness? Is there a depression? Remember, depression is our emotions that are withheld and suppressed. So we want to let those out and think about how you can move that energy by breathing. And those neuro tools that I gave you in previous live events, where you clap your hands 5 times, it creates a pattern interrupt, or you burst into song for 5 seconds, it creates a pattern interrupt. Or you, if you can, jump up and down, or a combination of any of those things. And then there's a pattern interrupt. And so the negative is thwarted for just a moment. And what do you do then? You're in the present moment. That's the present moment. It's the nebula. There's nothing there unless you put something in it. And space abhors a vacuum. So put something in it that makes you laugh, makes you smile, gives you reason to feel more gratitude. And as you create that, it's such a quantum moment. It's so tiny. Quantum leap is a contradiction, folks. Quantum is the tiniest dot. It's just so tiny. Leap is huge. That moment of becoming present where you put the negative on hold and replace it in that neutral space with something positive. That is the present moment. That's what I'd like you to work on. That's what I'd like you to focus on. And then I will see you again. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being. Be sparkly, put more love into the world, and, we'll all sleep better. Until then, thank you. Be well. I wish you peace.